What you think about that?
He didn't do.
Just like that, Charleston White clearly declared David innocent and backed it up with proof no one expected. The evidence he revealed shocked everyone, completely turning the case around and making people question everything they thought they knew. When news first broke that a dismembered body had been found in a Tesla registered to rising music star David, the internet exploded with accusations, theories, and outrage. Headlines labeled him guilty before a trial even began. Fans argued over whether his lyrics were secret confessions, and brands quickly cut ties to protect their image. But in the middle of all this chaos, one voice stood out louder than the rest: Charleston White, known for being bold, controversial, and unapologetically unfiltered. He shocked audiences when he declared that the 20-year-old artist wasn't guilty at all and even claimed that the lack of an arrest was the clearest sign of David's innocence.
What you think about that?
He didn't do it.
Fuck out of here. All the evidence that's out there.
It wasn't just a casual statement. Charleston doubled down with reasoning he believed was undeniable. He argued that in America, especially for young black men, people are arrested every day with far less evidence. If law enforcement really had solid proof against David, Charleston insisted he would already be in jail. He said they often arrest people with much less evidence just to hold them. To Charleston, the fact that no charges had been filed didn't mean authorities were building a bigger case. It meant they had no case at all. He illustrated this.
If they found a dead body in me and your car, and this is our car, do you think they'll let me and you stay out like long as they got out? So think about this.
That blunt comparison cut straight to Charleston's point. He argued that if an ordinary person had a body connected to them, they would be locked up immediately. The fact that David was still touring, still free, and appearing in public without being arrested, Charleston said, spoke louder than any rumor. But he didn't stop at pointing out the lack of an arrest. He went further, breaking down the allegations that David had been involved with an underage girl and connected to her brutal death. Speculation flooded social media with matching tattoos, leaked photos, and even song lyrics that fans claimed were confessions. But Charleston dismissed the entire narrative, saying it was too neat and too perfectly set up to be real.
So think about this. If they got all this information on him dating a minor, an underage kid, and she looked like a white girl, mixed girl, what they let just stay free like this?
The way Charleston framed it, the entire story just didn't add up. A black artist allegedly tied to a missing 15-year-old girl, supposedly with physical evidence linking him to her death, and yet no detainment, no charges, not even a temporary hold. To Charleston, that silence from law enforcement wasn't negligence. It was proof that David might not be the villain the world believed he was. And in true Charleston fashion, he didn't shy away from making his audience uncomfortable. He pointed to how the body was discovered, dismembered, and hidden, a crime that, in his eyes, required a level of planning and brutality that didn't match David's public persona. He pushed his viewers to ask whether the entire situation could have been a setup, whether someone else was truly responsible. They got all this evidence saying he did it. The body was butchered, and still no rest, he stressed. As those words spread across X, YouTube, and Instagram, Charleston's take split the internet in two. To some, he was defending the indefensible, trying to clear a man whose own car held a teenager's remains. To others, he was one of the only people bold enough to say what they had quietly been thinking: maybe the story wasn't so simple. Charleston didn't just drop a hot take and disappear. He stayed on the case, repeating his arguments again and again. To him, it wasn't just strange that David hadn't been arrested, it was impossible to believe the story as it was being told. He even reminded his audience of one of the most infamous legal battles in modern history, the O.J. Simpson trial.
You mean to tell me O.J. was found with a bloody glove, he was arrested immediately? Immediately, with all the circumstantial evidence they found on O.J., they placed it. So you mean to tell me they got all of this on this and he still get to move freely amongst America?
By bringing up O.J., Charleston wasn't just making a casual comparison, he was calling out what he saw as hypocrisy in how cases are handled. He argued that if police are willing to lock someone up on the weakest circumstantial evidence, then why hadn't they done the same with David, who supposedly had much stronger evidence against him? Charleston then took the conversation into darker territory, suggesting possible scenarios where someone else could have been behind the crime. These ideas were uncomfortable to hear, but they made it clear just how deeply he doubted the official story.
And let me think outside the box. Maybe his mama done it. Maybe her mama done it. and set him up. Maybe one of them racist uncles or cousins don't like a maybe the other boyfriend done it. Maybe the pimp who was sex trafficking her for the last year when she ran away done it.
These weren't polished courtroom arguments. They were raw speculations tossed into the public like grenades. But that was exactly why Charleston's voice carried so far. He wasn't restricted by legal rules or careful wording. He spoke in a way that was blunt, messy, and emotionally charged, and it resonated with people. In doing so, he painted a picture of a case that, in his view, simply didn't add up. He even mocked the idea that David's relationship with the victim was obvious, questioning the credibility of the matching tattoos that had gone viral. Fans had pointed out that both David and the 15-year-old victim had a tattoo on their index fingers, claiming it proved intimacy, but Charleston refused to accept that as proof. To him, the tattoo didn't confirm a relationship. It was just another example of weak evidence being turned into sensational headlines. Then came one of the most controversial moments of his defense, the part that made many people furious. Charleston turned his criticism toward the girl herself, using language that many found deeply offensive, but which revealed his firm belief that David was being made a scapegoat.
They said, man, he wrong for calling her a little hoe, but she was. Little girl don't run away from home, little hoes and little...
That statement wasn't just harsh, it was explosive. Critics accused Charleston of blaming the victim, of defending David by attacking a child who could no longer speak for herself. But Charleston's supporters argued that he wasn't excusing anything. He was forcing people to question whether the story being told about David was too one-sided. In Charleston's view, uncomfortable questions were better than blindly accepting the narrative. He repeatedly hammered on the racial angle, making it the centerpiece of his defense. They don't let black men get away with these kinds of crimes. Not in America. That line echoed across social media and, for Charleston, it was the ultimate logic. If a young black man had really committed something this horrific, he wouldn't be walking free. The fact that David was still out in the world, uncharged, meant something deeper was happening. That's what made Charleston stand out. While others obsessed over tattoos and lyrics, he focused on the bigger picture, race, and how the justice system behaves when the world is watching. By this point, Charleston wasn't just questioning the case, he was dismantling it piece by piece and daring anyone to prove him wrong. His words carried the weight of someone who had spent a lifetime studying injustice. To him, this wasn't just about one rapper. It was about a system that had never been fair to black men suddenly appearing to fair in a case that seemed perfect for a quick conviction. Charleston's reasoning was almost paradoxical. The body found in a Tesla registered to David, the alleged relationship with a minor, the disturbing lyrics, most people looked at those facts and saw guilt. But Charleston looked at them and saw innocence. Because if guilt were real, he argued, the system would never hesitate. It was a strange kind of defense. Charleston wasn't claiming there was no evidence. He was claiming there was too much. So much that its very weight made the lack of rest suspicious to him. This contradiction demanded an explanation, and he went further by imagining scenarios few others dared to consider. What if, he asked, this wasn't David's crime at all? What if it was a setup carefully made to look airtight, but was actually full of holes? Those questions turned Charleston's commentary into a viral spectacle. Some dismissed him as reckless and irresponsible, while others found themselves nodding along. Because setups and cover-ups weren't unheard of in the world of celebrity scandals, and Charleston knew exactly how to keep that tension alive. He brought the discussion back again and again to one undeniable truth: David was still free. Okay, the girl is dead. He was dating a 13-year-old. We have all this evidence, and you want me to believe police haven't even arrested him? For Charleston, the answer was simple: David didn't do it. That was the hill he chose to die on. He knew his stance would spark backlash, with people accusing him of downplaying the death of a child or excusing behavior that shouldn't be excused, but Charleston never feared backlash. He thrived on it. As social media argued over whether his defense was truth-telling or trolling, Charleston doubled down. He urged audiences to think about every case where young black men had been dragged into courtrooms over rumors, arrested on suspicion, and locked away based on maybe and probably. Yet here was a case stacked with DNA, tattoos, songs, a car, and endless headlines, and still no rest. To Charleston White, that wasn't coincidence, it was proof of innocence. For millions watching online, it was the kind of statement that made them pause, replay, and wonder if maybe he was right. But Charleston White's defense of David didn't come out of nowhere. To understand why his words went viral, why millions engaged with his opinion, and why even his most extreme claims carried weight, you have to understand the man himself. Charleston White isn't just another commentator with a microphone, he is a man built on controversy, someone whose life has been shaped by crime, redemption, hypocrisy, and spectacle. Born in 1977 in Texas, Charleston's life took a violent turn by age 14 when he was involved in a fatal altercation outside a Foot Locker store that left a man dead. As a teenager, he was tried as an adult, convicted of murder, and imprisoned until he was 21 years old. That moment left him with both a criminal record and a permanent stain on his name. To his critics, it proves he has no moral ground, but to Charleston, it is the foundation of his life story, a mistake that fuels his outspoken mission today. After his release, he tried to rebuild his life, becoming a community activist and even founding the Hypocrisy Over Politics Hope organization to guide kids away from gangs and crime. For a time, it looked like he might stay on the path of redemption, using his past as a warning to others, but Charleston was never built for quiet change. His personality, his energy, and his constant need to provoke pulled him back into the spotlight, not as a saint, but as a firebrand. By the 2020s, Charleston had become infamous for his brutal honesty and his willingness to call out anyone, rappers, politicians, even entire communities, using names like T.I., Boosie Badazz, and many others as stepping stones for his own brand of online commentary. He didn't just critique them, he went after their families, their parenting, and their reputations. Every insult went viral, every feud brought him more followers. And every time he did it, people were left asking the same question: is Charleston White a truth teller or just a clout chaser willing to say anything for attention? Take his feud with streamer Adin Ross, for example. During a live stream in 2023, Charleston pepper sprayed Ross's associate on camera, causing instant chaos and sparking legal threats. That single moment became the perfect snapshot of Charleston's personality: volatile, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. In another infamous incident, he waved stacks of cash at hecklers during a comedy show, taunting them instead of calming things down. To some, it was comedy. To others, it was proof Charleston wasn't a reformed activist at all, but a showman addicted to outrage. And that, in part, is why people listen to him. Charleston doesn't just talk, he embodies contradiction. One minute he's condemning gang culture and preaching accountability, the next he's mocking victims, joking about tragedies, and laughing at deaths. In September 2025, he even cursed out the family of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk after his death, dismissing it as white-on-white crime and laughing it off. That moment alone captured Charleston's duality: part social critic, part troll, all chaos. So when Charleston White speaks, people tune in for one of two reasons. They either believe he's exposing uncomfortable truths, or they're waiting to catch him contradicting himself. Either way, his words travel fast. And that's why, when he turned his attention to David's case, it mattered. Charleston's voice doesn't exist in a vacuum, it thrives at the center of controversy. This time, his target wasn't a rapper he was beefing with or a politician he despised. It was the system itself and its claim that David was guilty. By the time Charleston White threw his weight behind David, his reputation was already a patchwork of scandals, hot takes, and viral explosions. He wasn't some outsider suddenly stepping into the spotlight. Charleston was already a storm, and his involvement in the case only added thunder to an already chaotic situation. In early 2024, he made headlines after mocking the tragic deaths of Chicago rapper King Von and Houston's Takeoff. He didn't just say their names, he laughed and dismissed their legacies, calling their deaths the natural end for street life. Clips of his commentary spread quickly, cementing him as someone who didn't respect sacred ground. For many, this was the moment Charleston stopped being seen as a reformed activist and became a professional antagonist. Then came the clashes with Boosie Badazz. Charleston openly accused Boosie of being a terrible father, saying his choices were leading his kids down the same path of crime and chaos that Boosie himself once lived. It wasn't just an insult, it was a public attack on Boosie's family. And when Boosie fired back, Charleston escalated things even more, throwing out threats that blurred the line between comedy and real violence. To Charleston, it was just keeping it real. To critics, it was harassment. Even law enforcement wasn't safe from his wrath. He called out police chiefs, mocked entire departments, and even once claimed he would shoot any cop who tried him. The contradictions just kept stacking up. Here was a man who built his reputation on speaking against gang violence, but at the same time glorified confrontation and armed defiance. And yet, Charleston thrived in the chaos. Every insult, every feud, every outrageous statement only made him a bigger name. By 2025, he was less of an activist and more of a one-man media circus. Whether he was brandishing guns on Instagram Live or clowning rappers in interviews, Charleston had figured out how to monetize controversy. So when he spoke on David's case, critics rolled their eyes. They said Charleston wasn't defending the truth. He was just chasing clout. After all, what bigger story could a provocateur dive into than a teenage pop star accused of murder? But here's the paradox that made Charleston's involvement so fascinating. The more people accused him of clout chasing, the more traction his words got. His defense of David wasn't whispered behind closed doors. It was blasted across YouTube, TikTok, and X, where millions watched, debated, and shared it. One clip in particular went viral, where Charleston said, "Listen, hold on. If they found a dead body in me and your car, and this is our car, do